Welcome back to episode 4 of Glossy Girl Gossip. In this episode, we'll be breaking down the theories and concepts that were used throughout this podcast series that pertain to how does TikTok and Instagram use algorithms, content loops, and filters to perpetuate ideas of beauty and body standards amongst women and teenage girls who are a part of Generation Z and Alpha audiences. We'll also be going over more media takes that connects to this research topic that we have developed. So let's dive in. As we know, cultivation theory is described as how television and social media influences the viewer's understanding of the world. Over time, heavy viewers of television and social media cultivates views of the world similar to what they see online and on television. Some would also view this concept and theory as mainstreaming, according to George Gerbner. Another concept that was created by George Gerbner that connects to how TikTok and Instagram uses algorithms, content loops, and filters to perpetuate beauty and body standards amongst women and teenage girls of Generation Z and Alpha audiences is called resonance. Resonance occurs when content is aligned with viewers' real-world experiences. This increases the influence of television and social media on their view and beliefs of reality. Now let's move on to the social comparison theory, which is basically how you compare yourself to others or influencers or people that you follow online. So basically we have the upward social comparison theory, which basically is when you compare yourself to someone who's doing better than you. The downward social comparison theory is comparing yourself to someone who is doing worse than you, while the lateral social comparison theory is comparing yourself to someone who is similar to you and have similar interests. Now, moving on to algorithms, which is a hidden system used by online platforms such as social media apps and streaming platforms to curate content for users based on their engagement. Content loops are typically described as repeated content that is distributed to attract more engagement from users. Most importantly, media literacy is educating yourself to think critically about the way media content is produced, constructed, and consumed. It also provides skills that help deconstruct the ideological messages encoded in that media text. Then we have the excitation theory, which means emotions do not disappear after being exposed to certain media content. These emotions can be transferred and influence how we feel. Next, we have objectification and self-objectification. So, objectification is how society views women, while self-objectification is the psychological process that allows women to internalize others' objectification of their bodies, causing them to self-criticize. So we also have the self-discrepancy theory, which is how distress is curated when there is a disconnect between actual self, ideal self, and out self. So let's break these three down. Actual self is who you really are. Ideal self is who you admire to be, while out self is what society wants you to be. Then we have priming, which is how people judge what is being shown in media and on social media. Exposure to certain media messages has an influence on how we think and what we notice, while framing influences how we think about certain content that we are unfortunately exposed to. Now, in episode 3, we went over a few media texts such as the movie The Uglies, Paradise, #AriReal, and the France Photoshop Law. I'd like to go a little bit in depth. So the movie Uglies is a film that takes place in the dystopian era where teenagers undergo mandatory plastic procedures to make them pretty. And teens who aren't selected or chosen or chooses not to participate in this process are discriminated against, and they are actually banned from the city, which is called Prettiest. Whoever gets invited to this city, they get to live lavish lives, and they are basically socially accepted more. So they don't face the discrimination, they don't face the backlash of being a regular human being. The movie Paradise is also a dystopian film, but it's a little bit different. So this is a film that takes place in a German dystopian area where a biotech company called Aeon can actually sell people's life and beauty to other individuals in exchange for wealth. So if you are struggling to provide for your family, you or someone else in that family can actually sell your beauty, your age, or your life expectancy rate for money. This is kind of similar to how influencers are paid to promote beauty and body products to other consumers in order to get paid as an influencer from TikTok and or Instagram or any other social platform to provide for yourself or your family members. Moving on to hashtag #RaReal, which is a beauty and body positivity campaign where filters and over edited content aren't used. Women with natural body features are actually shown in that media spotlight a little bit more. So they have the wrinkles, the ethnic looks, they have the gaps, they have the people with disabilities and different body frames. Then we have the brand that is sponsored by the singer Rihanna, which is called Fenty X Savage. And she basically does the same thing by using natural models to promote her brand without using those over edited content, pictures and filters and things of that nature. She uses women of different genders, different races, different sizes, shapes, everything. It's just, she just uses natural women to get her point across that everybody is beautiful and everybody is supposed to be accepted in that societal standard that is put out about beauty and body standards amongst women and teenage girls. Something unique that I did come across was the France Photoshop law. So France has basically made it illegal for influencers and celebrities to put out over edited content on social media apps without placing a warning label in the caption or on the footer of the content. So if you fail to do so, individuals actually face jail time or they receive high fines, which they have to pay. And this is to alleviate the rise in those unrealistic body and beauty standards that are placed online that typically target women and teenage girls amongst Generation Z and Alpha audiences. After conducting my research, I found that researchers haven't touched on media texts that I've used, such as Ugly's Paradise and Rihanna's Fenty X Savage platform. There also isn't a lot of research and talks about how the French Photoshop law connects to how TikTok and Instagram and other social media apps uses algorithms, content loops, and filters to perpetuate ideas and beauty standards amongst Generation Z and Alpha audiences when it comes to women and teenage girls. So it's something that you really have to dig into and go in depth to find information about, because it's not out there yet, even though the law was passed in 2017. Now, there actually has been more research being done on the mental and psychological effects of social media on women and teenage girls. So I do believe that the topic is moving in the direction to protect women and teenage girls more. It's also opening up doors for more diverse representation across all platforms. Instagram and TikTok targets users by watching their user-generated content, shaping the views of Generation Z and Alpha audiences' perception of beauty and body standards. Yes, these apps can be used to find inspiration for creativity and self-expression, but they also contribute to body dissatisfactions, low self-esteem issues, and the increase of that social comparison theory. So this societal implication doesn't just depend on how the platform is designed, but it also includes media literacy and authentic representation of everyone in that generational group, such as Generation Z and Alpha audiences online. Essentially, this does affect all users on TikTok and Instagram, but it mostly targets women and teenagers of Generation Z and Alpha audiences. And some real world examples that I'd like to talk about is from the TV show called Baddies that's on Zeus. There is an influencer by the name of Ciroc on this TV show who currently went to go get a plastic procedure to change the way her eyelids actually looks because she was getting bullied on social media because of how puffy her eyelids were. And that's just her falling into those societal standards, falling into those beauty standards that people place on others when it comes to being online or being an influencer. Then we also have Bella Harrington, which is an 11-year-old girl who was bullied because of the shape of her ears. She actually received ear surgery at this young age, but it was approved by her doctors and her parents. And they said that it was to improve her mental health and just the struggles that she was having at school. And she didn't want to get bullied anymore. They didn't want her to get bullied anymore. So they went on ahead and allowed her to get this surgery. And surprisingly, by 2012, plastic procedures have actually increased by 60%, while fillers in the face have increased by 78% amongst younger women who are a part of Generation Z and Alpha audiences, which is kind of crazy because that number is actually continuing to go up. But like I said, you're basically not allowed to promote these type of things in social media because it is increasing the mindset of having that body dissatisfaction and not being happy with who you are in today's society because of how Instagram and TikTok and other apps use algorithms, content loops, and filters to perpetuate ideas of beauty and body standards amongst women and teenage girls, a part of Generation Z and Alpha audiences. Well, I hope you learned a lot in this last episode of Glossy Girl Gossip, where we covered all of the concepts and theories, and we also covered the media text that was discovered throughout this research process, and we added a little bit more. I hope you really enjoyed this episode and learned a lot. And don't forget, always be yourself, love who you are, and don't compare yourself to others because you don't know what people have went through and you don't know what people are going through. Have a good night. Thank you for tuning in.